If I asked you to tell me who you are without any further context, probably you would struggle to answer that question, much in the same way that if you asked someone on the street to define the word "the" or define the word "that," you struggle with it. There's such common words in your vernacular that you never really think to break it down. But if I asked you, so in that way, if I ask you who you are so close to you, you don't ever really think about it, do you? But if I were to ask you, think back to when you were 18. Could you tell me about that guy? Could you tell me about that lady? You would be able to say probably quite a bit. You'd say, oh, well, I was hot headed, or I was sort of a jerk, I was sort of a. I'm sorry, let me see if I can. Something's not right with my camera. I was sort of hot headed, I was sort of a jerk, I was irrational, all of these different things. Would it bother you to know that most of the things that you said about your 18-year-old self are probably still true? Would it bother you further if I said, think back to when you were in the 6th grade? Who were you? Most of those things would still be true. The big things might change, right? The conscious effort things would be different. You would probably still laugh at some of the same things. Some of the same things would still get you angry. Some of the fears would still be there. Some of the things that made you inspired would likely be the same. Would you be further insulted to know that probably, if you went all the way back to grade school, many of those things would still be there? Welcome to Strip Cover Lit, where we squeeze the bigger picture out of literature. Where literature lives depends on the day of the week, right? We are here today for a poetry discussion which will appear in two different playlists. Number one being the poetry discussion playlist, cruising towards 850 poems strong. Number two is the William Wordsworth playlist, a playlist dedicated to the poetry of William Wordsworth. The poem in question today is one that I have to revisit every so often because I love it oh so much. It is I Wandered Lonely as a Cloud, and it reads as such. I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high over vales and hills, when all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils, beside the lake, beneath the trees, fluttering and dancing in the breeze. Continuous as the stars that shine and twinkle on the Milky Way, they stretched in a never-ending line along the margin of the bay. 10,000 saw I at a glance, tossing their heads in sprightly dance. The waves beside them danced, but they outdid the sparkling waves in glee. A poet could not help, could not but be gay, in such a jocund company. I gazed and gazed, but little thought what wealth the show to me had brought. For oft when on my couch I lie, in vacant or in pensive mood, they flash upon that inward eye, which is the bliss of solitude. And then my heart with pleasure fills, and dances with the daffodils. So I want to start this discussion by noticing something that is different from many of the poems about this topic. So this is about a find yourself in the moment type of topic, right? This is about a being with it topic, with itness, as they would tell you if you were taking pedagogy classes. This is a poem about being present. Really, it is. It is about a person who is wandering around and notices daffodils, and those daffodils make him happy, right? Kind of. It's not really something in the now that he's taking from this. It's something that he's savoring later. So he's holding on to this moment of presentness for when he has to tune out. For oft when on my couch I lie in vacant or in pensive mood, right? Oftentimes, these poems about presentness, they focus on one of two things. They focus on a fleeting nature. They focus on things changing. Right? Because life's so fast, man. If you don't pay attention, you're going to wake up dead tomorrow. Or they just focus on death. Right? The memento mori thing, right? Be present because you don't know how long you have here. And if you don't live in the now is all you have if you're always living in the future. If you're always living in the past, you're never alive. You're never alive. What's interesting about this poem is it does neither. It is about presentness, but it does neither of those things. It does not. So everything here, I wandered lonely as a cloud. That is a constant about clouds. Clouds are lonely. I wandered lonely as a cloud. Golden daffodils. Now, those daffodils in this poem are always golden. There's no mention of the fact that someday those daffodils will be dead. They will be gone. The closest you get is their fluttering and dancing, which is continuous, but not... which is continuous. The movement is continuous here because we don't see them standing still. And the other images that we have as well are constants, continuous as the stars that shine. You have all of these constant things going on, even if it's movement. If it's movement, it is constant movement. So it's not about the fleeting nature of life. And it's not about it's not about death. We get something resembling death, vacant or a pensive mood. Now, I've gone on at length on this channel about that line right there, right? Vacant or in pensive mood, this is not a happy poem. This is a poem about the dark times. But I want to really emphasize a couple of these things. If we go back up to the beginning of the poem, I wandered lonely as a cloud. Does that cloud have any choice but be lonely? Does that cloud have any choice but to wonder? How often do clouds stand still? Those daffodils, do they have any choice in this fluttering and dancing in the breeze? They don't even get to say where to go. They're stuck. They're planted right there. Planted right there in the ground. And the clouds, yeah, the cloud gets some freedom. But the cloud's always moving. The cloud does what it does. The cloud has a nature to it. The daffodils have a nature to them. The continuous stars that shine have a nature to them. They are a thing. So, by the time we get to this end stanza, for oft when on my couch I lie in vacant or in pensive mood, they flash upon that inward eye which is the bliss of solitude. And then my heart with pleasure fills and dances with the daffodils. His heart does, but he does not. Oft when on my couch I lie, this is him, in vacant or in pensive mood. He is that vacant mood. He is that pensive mood. He is solitudinal. I want to share something with you that is as I understand it, I am not reading the DSM-5 every day or anything like that, but as I understand it, it's a bit of a dated term in psychology, but I think some of that is the whole field of psychology has tried very, very hard to get rid of Freud for a very, very long time. I think they consider him problematic. But the idea of psychic determinism, and then we'll reframe the poem, right? I'm not just going on in this. This goes back to the opening spiel to this video. Psychic determinism is a type of determinism that theorizes that all mental processes are not spontaneous but are determined by unconscious or pre-existing mental complexes. It relies on the causality principle applied to psychic occurrences in which nothing happens by chance or by accidental or by accidental arbitrary ways. It is one of the central concepts of psychoanalysis. Thus, slips of the tongue, forgetting an individual's name, and any other verbal associations or mistakes are assumed to have a psychological meaning. Now, I will agree that a lot of this stuff is probably overstepping the bounds of the theory. That a slip of the tongue, forgetting a name, things like that. I think that those things are more natural than not, because your brain does not include chips onto which all of this information is written. Psychoanalytic therapists will generally probe clients and have them elaborate on why something popped into their head or why they may have forgotten someone's name rather than ignoring material. So this type of thing here is 100% valid. Your thoughts your thoughts are not stirred up by you. They've done studies on this where they're brain image scanning people, and they ask people to raise your hand the moment you get the answer to this question, right? So they'll ask them a question, think about it, boom, hand goes up. Well, their brain suggests that they had the answer before it cogitated into words, and they raise their hand, suggesting that there is somewhere in the subconscious from which all of these things come. We are more subconscious than conscious. The therapist then analyzed this discussion for clues revealing unconscious connections to the slip of a verbal association. Psychic determinism is related to the overarching concept of determinism, specifically in terms of human actions. Therapists who adhere to the belief in psychic determinism assume that human action and decisions are predetermined and not necessarily their own control. Why do I bring this up? I bring this up because the very title of this poem is I Wandered Lonely as a Cloud, reflected obviously in the first line of the poem. And I think by the time we get to the end of this poem, it's easy to forget what you're doing right there. You start this poem with the phrase, I wandered lonely as a cloud. We, the reader, are expecting change. We are expecting something to go differently for our speaker. Does it? Does our speaker ever come to the revelation that, oh, I should be more social? Does our speaker ever come to the revelation that, oh, I am loving this host of golden daffodils. I am loving the fact that this is a crowd. I saw a crowd of golden daffodils. No, our speaker never comes to that revelation. Our speaker titled the God-forsaken poem, I Wandered Lonely as a Cloud. Started the God-forsaken poem, I Wandered Lonely as a Cloud. Our speaker ends the God-forsaken poem with, for oft when on my couch I lie in vacant or in pensive mood, they flash upon that inward eye which is the bliss of solitude. Our speaker, it seems, is not taking joy in the dance of the daffodils. Our speaker seems to be taking a heartened mood to the fact that those daffodils are doing what they do. Those daffodils are being true and authentic to what it is that they are. His heart with pleasure fills and dances with the daffodils, but he is often on his couch lying in vacant or in pensive mood. That is where our speaker finds himself. Our speaker is on his couch alone. Our speaker has found himself once again vacant and pensive. And it is not dancing in a crowd that gets him returned to a place where he can be productive. It is when they flash upon that inward eye and he feels the bliss of solitude. This poem is not about finding happiness. This poem is not about changing, living in the now. It's not about present. It's about presentness, but it's about presentness through authenticity. It's not about becoming happy. It's not about finding happiness. It's not about finding a more cohabitable way of living your life. It's not about finding community, despite the fact that those daffodils have their community. No, this poem is about authenticity. That is all I have for this video. If you like or appreciate what it is that I do here, hitting the like button really does help me out, as it tells YouTube to share this video with other literature lovers. And if you find yourself here by chance but not design, literature is the only thing I talk about on this channel, dropping multiple videos every single week. There's poetry every Monday, and I hope to have you back for the next one.